there are no electrical facilities on K that are tied to the load center. In fact, there's no electrical facilities. The second question, in regards to sidewalk, no, that will be a municipality expense. And the heated sidewalk that I know of right now is just at the police station in G&H.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we will move to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Oh.
I was uncertain if there would be a presentation from the project team. I was holding off, but it appears there's not. So if I can ask my questions.
You're too late. Sorry. Just kidding. Commissioner Ron, go ahead.
Thank you. So to the project team, thank you, Ms. Makwa, for coming forward, or Mr. Webb. My question is around sidewalks as well. Bottom of page 13, there's a statement, widening the sidewalk to comply with code will, and then a number of elements require either right-of-way acquisition, parking removal, lane width reduction, or some combination thereof. Is it implicit that, in fact, compliance is the objective, so that the sidewalk will be brought into compliance with code, or is that just letting everyone know that if we were to achieve compliance, these things would be required?
Yes, again, my name's Will Webb. I'm with Kinney Engineering. We are the design engineers for the municipality on this project. Chair Spinelli, Commissioner Ron, the notes on page 13 are regarding the side streets, so I and H. They have a narrower right-of-way width than 4th Avenue, so as a result, there's not enough space for the vehicle lanes and the parking and sidewalks to be compliant with the code. So we'll install sidewalks as wide as we can, but they won't be the 10.5 feet or 11.5 as required by code.
Mr. Chair, if I may follow up with just a final comment. It's not a question, unless, of course, the project team or the department wanted to respond to it. And that's with respect to some of the language used on page 14. At the bottom, there's a statement to help minimize problems with vagrants. And that word or that term just caught my attention. And I would request that going forward, some more contemporary human-centered language can be used in that instance where appropriate.
Absolutely, thank you.
Commissioner Pullis.
Quick question. You guys haven't anticipated construction date yet?
Commissioner Pullis, at this point we're aiming to advertise the project in late 2026 so that long lead items can be procured over that winter with construction happening in 27.
Okay. Just another quick comment, I guess, is I've heard rumors about, lane reductions and stuff in maybe I Street and L Street. Have you guys been forth planning with anyone about that?
So some members of our team are working on the I and L corridors study. At this point, we haven't sketched anything out with narrower or reduced lanes, but we will be working with them, including things as appropriate for the stretch that we're working on.
Thank you.
And I want to clarify too about the schedule. At this point, it's likely that this project will be broken into 2 phases, which will be consistent in size with the previous work that's been done on 4th Avenue. So it won't be one large project with 8 blocks. It will probably be 2 separate projects. But the phasing is still up in the air, frankly, depending on this project and others that are to come.
Are you guys trying to put the silver cells and stuff in the sidewalks where you can, or are you getting any pressure to put them, in spots where we know it's a bike lane, ADA area, to put them to minimize those sidewalk widths?
So at this point, we're assuming a similar configuration to what's been done on 4th Avenue for E to A. However, we will be working with area stakeholders, and that could possibly change. But at this point on 4th Avenue, the intent is to go forward with what's been done. And then on the other streets, as mentioned, the sidewalk widths are much narrower, so unlikely to have trees, but it's a balance between trees and wood. Thank you.
A question for Commissioner Krishna.
Not quite a question. Mr. Webb has very kindly listened to my thoughts about sidewalks and street trees many times now, so I'll spare him. But just a comment following up on Commissioner Poulos' question. The Downtown Streets Engineering Study is underway right now, so if anyone is interested in the larger context of circulation and right-of-way management and sidewalks and pedestrian usage and vehicular usage throughout downtown, I would welcome or invite anyone who's here in the commission or in the public to attend First Friday this week. The planning department will be presenting the preliminary plans and cost estimates per block, I understand, for various configurations, which could include reducing lanes or reconfiguring, making some one-way streets two-way streets. So just of interest if anyone is interested in the larger picture of downtown circulation.
Okay. There's no more questions or comments on that item. We'll be moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? It's moved by Commissioner Poulos, seconded by Commissioner Krishna. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Now we will move on to unfinished business, case 2024-0100. Is there a motion to postpone the continuation of this case to March 10th? Moved by Commissioner Krishna, seconded by Commissioner George. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Case 2024-0100 will be taken up on March 10th. Now we'll move to the public hearing portion. The procedures by which the public may speak to the commission at its meeting. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rule and procedure. Petitioners, including his or her representatives, will receive 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. will receive 5 minutes. Individuals will receive 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. Any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the commission's decision made on the record written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 2103-050A4A. Commission recommendations to the Anchorage Assembly are not appealable. Following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may within 20 days file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with section 2103-050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. Okay, I will pass the gavel to Commissioner Krishna, and I have presumably summoned this case.
May we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, so this is a request for a conditional use approval. It would allow a vocational school within the B3 or general business district. The development is on a vacant lot off of Boundary Avenue near its intersection with Boniface Parkway. The department did not receive any comments from members of the public. Reviewing agencies had no opposition. We did receive a comment just this morning from the Northeast Community Council. They passed a resolution in support of the project, and that resolution has been distributed to the commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission may approve a conditional use if all of the criteria have been met. The department finds criteria 1 through 9 are all met. I'll briefly summarize these 9 criteria in the department's findings. Criterion 1, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, inclusive of the 2040 land use plan and the land use designation for this property of light industrial/commercial. Criterion 2, the proposed use is consistent with the purpose and intent of the B3 district in which it is located. Criterion 3, the proposed use is consistent with any applicable use-specific standards. The use meets the definition of a vocational or trade school, and there will not be training in an activity not otherwise permitted in the district. Criterion 4, the site size, dimensions, shape, location, and topography are adequate for the needs of the proposed use. Criterion 5, the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area. There's adequate landscaping between this project and the residentially zoned properties. In this development will actually provide a transition from other commercial and industrial uses that are nearby, including a U-Haul rental facility. Criterion 6, the proposed use is compatible with uses allowed on adjacent properties. The proposed development will not create adverse noise, odor, lighting, or dust. Hours of operation are compatible with surrounding uses. Criterion 7, significant adverse impacts from the use will be mitigated or offset. No significant adverse impacts are anticipated. Criterion 8, the proposed use is appropriately located with respect to the transportation system. Traffic engineering provided comments indicating the site plan meets requirements. For the driveway that would connect to Boundary Avenue, the state of Alaska would review and permit the driveway before it's constructed. In Criterion 9, the proposed use is appropriately located with respect to existing facilities and services. As all 9 criteria are met, the department recommends approval of the conditional use request subject to conditions 1 and 2 in the staff report. Those conditions require filing a notice of zoning action with the state. That's a standard condition. And then receiving administrative relief from the planning director for the window design on the building, which is a pretty straightforward administrative approval. That's the end of my staff report.
Any questions for staff? Not seeing any. May we hear from the petitioner?
Thank you so much for your time. As you may or may not be aware, we'll show kind of what we want to build. But our intent with this request is we're going to build a 30,000 square foot training facility for carpenters here in the great state of Alaska. If we receive your approval, we are looking to go forward with this project as soon as possible. We are in desperate need of a training facility, and we are very excited about a brand new 30,000 square foot facility right on Long Lane Highway. If we obtain approval, we anticipate hopefully sometime May to be breaking ground, and we hope to complete and have people training in there sometime this time next year.
Would you mind stating and spelling your name for the record?
I apologize, yeah. My name is Mauricio Latona. I am the Director of Real Estate for the Western Council of Carpenters. You can spell it. My first name is Mauri
Any questions for the petitioner? Well, just to ask you a single question while you're up here. It looks like there is a little bit of access from Boundary. Boundary has quite a high speed limit and some curves. It looks like the primary access is to Newell Street. Is that correct? Could you talk a little bit about the circulation pattern on the site?
We have two. The entry off of Boundary will be primarily where we're bringing in our supplies, training supplies. You can see it off that white car picture of the illustration. The other driveways, primarily probably a little bit more for our members or our staff that are coming in. But both of them are equally accessible.
Commissioner Ron?
Thank you, through the chair. I haven't looked through all of the facility drawings, but my interest is around electric vehicle charging stations, EVSE equipment. I'm curious if there's a potential merging of some of your curriculum with that type of accommodation on the parking side for users or students or members of the community. So a level 2 EV charger. I'm wondering if something like that has been considered in the design.
I believe we considered that.
Would you mind
So-
speaking into the microphone for the record, please?
And to clarify my question, it's not a requirement that I'm aware of. Just curious if
Yeah.
consideration has been made.
I understood you, but I wanted to see technically if we had any technical answer for it.
Sure,
But
thanks.
it is a question for part of my role is to think about future uses for our centers and future needs. EV charging is a huge thing for us. It's on our mind. I think I would do myself a good disservice by answering the question of hypothetical. Right now, it is something that we are in the process of kind of grasping, like, okay, how much will we need, do we need? We have plenty of power at this location, but as you know, when do the next machines change? Power needs change drastically. Right now, we do not have EV charging facility there. Not to say that we couldn't do it or would not do it. A lot of it just based on what we need for the future use for our organization and for our community. My wife would love the question, by the way. She's asked me that many times already.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any further discussion or? Oh, yes. Any members of the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. The public hearing is now closed. All right, that was moved by Commissioner Pullis, seconded by Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Pullis, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, thank you. I move in case 2025-001 to approve a conditional use for a vocational or trade school within the B3 General District, subject to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will. I would like to thank the applicant for a detailed application package. I was able to go right through it. I have full faith that building permit will take it from here. I intend to support the motion. It meets the approval criteria as noted by staff in their reviews. There was no public or agency oppositional comments. As far as I can tell, the only deviation of all the site requirements is for windows and stuff like that, and I have faith that the department can take it from there.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak to this motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. Ms. Eber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Strike?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes. Thank you. We'll take a 3-minute break while we get our recused commissioners back here, and then we'll move on to our next item.
All right. Moving on to case 2025-0006. Can we have the staff presentation, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Planning Department is requesting approval of text amendments to Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21, Chapters 4, the zoning districts, and Chapter 6, the dimensional standards. The purpose of these amendments is to clean up code changes made by AO 2023-103S as amended. That ordinance that was adopted by the Assembly last year is on page 20 of your packet. The Planning Department finds that all three approval criteria for a text amendment are met. State and municipal reviewing agencies have no objection. We didn't receive any public comments or comments from community councils. So the department's recommending the ordinance that we've drafted. The ordinance is on page, starts on page 4 of your packet, right behind this memo. I can discuss the specific text amendments if you like, but that's kind of what we got here. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Gardner, do you have a question?
Yes,
Go ahead.
thanks. I was wondering if you could walk me through, and this is with respect to the minimum side setbacks on page 5 of the packet, page 2 of the proposed ordinance. I'm not sure I entirely followed kind of how some of these requirements worked, and I was wondering if you could just kind of explain that piece of it.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Gardner. I just frame this with, the planning department is responding to a decision that's already been made. Right? We just want to make the code as clear as possible with the public, help the staff in the district here. I think the assembly would call them policies that are in the code. We're not trying to affect any of that. We're just trying to clear up language. I guess if you turn to page 6 of your packet, you'll see the table of dimensional standards as we have it now with the edits or text amendments that the planning department is proposing. And if you go to the second cell from the bottom, in where all the underlined and caps lock languages. So today, what our code says for the R2M district, dwelling multifamily, it says your site setback is this, and I have to read this to people to count it. It says 10, 10 feet site setback, 10, except 5 for multifamily with less than 5 units, and 5,000 square feet or less total buildable area, or where 5 is allowed as provided by, and then it's into another section. And that's just way too complicated to figure out, right? It's just a word salad. That's our current code. And so as soon as this was adopted, I set about trying to fix this. And the way we did it was we just said, okay, here's your setback, and then refer you to the cross-reference to the R2M district specific standard if the setback is greater. So you have to still check 2 places, but we thought that the way to clean it up the right way would be to delete most of the language from the cell and make it as simple and straightforward to read, and then it took some cleaning up now in the district specific standard on the previous page. So it should read the minimum side setback established in the table is increased from 5 feet to 10 feet for the structure when the building elevation facing the side lot line is greater than 72 feet in length, except the building elevation is exempt from this requirement if it is no more than 48 feet in length without a recess in the wall plane. That's like a bump out or a step back. And the remaining portion of the building elevation, so the rest of the building after 48 feet is a step back and has a minimum site setback of 15 feet. There's still a little bit of thinking to be doing there, but once all of this is, adopted there, that should be able to make sense of that as compared to what we have. And then there's the other option here. The gross floor area of the structure is greater than 5,000 square feet. So
Yeah, I guess the piece I wasn't sure of and is the relation between the I guess one facing the where the elevation facing the side lot line is greater than 72 feet in length, and then that except the building elevation exempt. And maybe I can clarify my question, which is that I think I'm reading that to say those are 2 separate conditions that could be met to increase it from 5 feet to 10 feet. One, and this is maybe to confirm my read, one is that you go up to 10 feet where the building elevation is greater than 72 feet in length. Oh no. Okay. Well,
no.
so if I guess I guess that the later part is that it can be greater than 72 feet in length, but if it meets that requirement, then it can still have the 5-foot side setback.
There's reasons why we got to where this is, but and I struggle with it too. It's hard to read, and these edits on top of edits are really hard to read too. But to answer your question, what is being done here is Romanet 1 and 2 are being combined into one. When we were looking at how to edit this so it made sense, it turned out the simplest, most comprehensible way of dealing with it was to combine 1 and 2 through some edits, and then deal with this. The assembly created a new Romanet that had to do with this 5,000 square feet, so that it wasn't there previously. And so, if you get to stick with the 5-foot setback, it's only increased if you can't apply, if you violate either one of these Romanet 1 or this 2, which has got the deleted D.
Commissioner Krishna.
Staying on that same page, are we missing an or between C1 and C2, because it's either the side setback increases if the length is more than 72 feet or 48 feet with the bump out, or the other clause that would trigger that is if the gross floor area is greater than 5,000 feet.
Let me read C above to see what's going on. The minimum side setback established in the table is increased from 5 feet to 10 feet before the structure when it's either 1 or 2. So there's no or. I think that when we were reading it, let's see, does it have to be bold? There's a definition of what or means and what and means in chapter 15. And means it has to be bold. Or means either. And I think that by doing Romanet 1 and 2, that it would be either. I didn't think that we needed the word or. Hard to answer on the spot here.
If I may, through the chair, I think it's a bit confusing without the or, because the original language includes an or that was taken out.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I can, look at tomorrow morning, and adding an or would be no problem. So I understand the point you're making.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I'm going to just go back to try to confirm my understanding of this piece. Just what I was asking about previously with the 72 feet in length. And so I think what this is doing, it's saying you don't have to, well, as a starting point, you go from 5 feet to 10 feet if the elevation facing the side lot line is greater than 72 feet in length. But it can be greater than 72 feet in length without increasing the side setback if you don't have more than 48 feet without a recess in its wall plane and the minimum portion. Yes, that's what it is. I'm wondering, the thought, if it's maybe clearer to just say the building elevation facing the side lot line is greater than 72 feet in length, unless no more than 48 feet in length, because just a thought, like what it says, the building elevation is exempt from this requirement. I'm not sure. I think I got tripped up because I wasn't sure what this requirement was referring to.
Mr. Gardner, as you read it, and you're stating it very well, I think the unless sounds like a better word choice for comprehension. Okay, because that's what was, I think that's what we intended by the word accept, but unless flows way better. It's just much easier to understand.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you through the chair. In that same general section that we've been discussing, my question is around, is there a height element to the horizontal run of an elevation at play here, or is it irrespective of actual height and elevation? And looking at 2B, it looks like language is being changed that removes that is 30 feet or more in height. In C, best I can tell, it looks like there's not a definitional criteria around the elevation component. It's just any elevation. Am I reading that correctly?
Right. C is about what your setback is, and B is about how long a building you can have, depending on the height of the building. And we've tried to simplify B so that there's not two potential height allowances. It's been simplified to just one. Because in B, in current code, it's saying if you have 29-foot tall building, then you can go to 180 feet. But if you have a 30-foot tall building, just 12 inches taller, you're limited to 150 feet. So 12 inches of building height determines 30 feet building length, which is crazy. And so we just said everything can be 180 feet.
So to clarify then, I think I'm on the same page, understanding that this element of setback is tied to the horizontal run of an elevation, of any elevation. And there's no distinction between the distance of the setback based on elevation. It's just on the run of the elevation.
C is only about what your setback is. B is only about how long your building's allowed to be. They're two separate standalone requirements.
Commissioner George.
Thank you, through the chair. If you'll indulge me for a moment. I'm trying to go back in my personal recollection. The underlying ordinance 2023-03S, which we saw before this body. This was the triplex and fourplex work that was passed. I remember we talked about this. The title is in relation to 3 and 4 unit dwelling construction and applying residential design standards for 1 and 2 family dwellings. I remember us talking about triplexes and fourplexes, and we had a discussion on this body about the reduction of the setbacks from 10 feet to 5. And I remember we sent it on to the assembly, but I have to admit I don't recall watching the actual debate at the assembly. And so what I see before us is the table for R2M for dwelling for up to 8 units. For R2M, we're talking about setbacks of 5 feet, and I'm wondering if this was something that was changed at the assembly level.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. After the Mr. Vollin's ordinance was reviewed by the commission, so the commission recommended approval as written, what the commission reviewed, but there were 3 floor amendments that were added, laid on the table at the meeting. One of them was this setback changes based on 5,000 square feet of building area, buildable area, and like versions of that phrase. Another was floor amendments to delete a cross-reference that needed to be there. I can't remember off the top of my head what the third one was, but what got adopted was different. It was changed 3 ways on the night of the meeting after it left the commission.
So the amendments were laid on the table, never publicly noticed, and didn't have input.
Correct, and the planning department never saw them. So,
Yeah, so thank you, I appreciate it. That's why I'm a little confused.
Real quick, I just want to, chime in for everybody. R2M historically had a 5-foot setback for single-family and duplexes, and then when we got above that, the setback was larger. I believe my read on this and the intent is that whether it's a duplex, a single-family, or a fourplex, if it's a smaller building, it can still have a 5-foot setback. When it gets to a bigger building, then it requires the larger setback. So that's kind of basically Commissioner Krishna.
Sure. Could you talk us through the reference that's been reinserted into the R2M?
Yes. Floor amendment by Assemblymember Browley deleted cross-reference in the table in the R2M district height cell, deleted the reference to the 3-story entitlement. So what we have in today's code is that in the table it says, here's your height, but it doesn't send you to another section of code that talks about how your height might be different than what's in the table, because the 3-story entitlement has a set of rules. And so by deleting the cross-reference, it just leaves people, unless you know to read further into the chapter and you don't know that there's another section of code governing the building's height. And so by reinserting the cross-reference, then people will know.
Thank you. That makes sense. So we're not changing anything about code. We're just making sure that the table links to all the sections of code that somebody needs to read through it.
You said it much better.
Thank
Yeah, it's just, sending people to something they need to be aware of.
Thank you.
Okay. Go through with questions for staff. We will move on to the petitioner's presentation, which we already had. Correct. So we will now open the public hearing. Any members of the public wishing to speak to the petition, please step forward, state your name for the record. Let us know if you're speaking as an individual or a member of the board.
My name's Eric Visser. I'm speaking as an individual. Spell my name Bricvisser. Yeah, I would just want to voice my support for this. I think it goes a long ways in cleaning up what the Assembly's intent was. There was a lot of people that worked on that ordinance for quite a while last year, and I think the end result we were all happy with the end result, and then the code came out and it was a little unclear to the point where I thought we were good to go in terms of building 3 stories on R2A, R2B, and R2M lots. Turns out that wasn't the case with the way the code is written now. But I also think it kind of supports more of what Cambridge needs for development, allowing more building on a tinier footprint, whereas like a 2.5-story building, what's the difference? As a 3-story building, you have a little more square footage on a little smaller footprint. So that's all I have. Open for questions if you guys have.
Commissioner Pullis has a question.
I just had a question about in your interactions that you recently had going from 2.5 to 3 stories and not being allowed. Did you talk to the fire department? They don't have any issues with that, do they?
No, the fire department, no. They're more worried about just those like extinguisher. Hydrants, that sort of thing.
I have a question for you. The duplexes you built on Lois Drive.
Yep.
Do you recall the side yard setback on those buildings?
5 feet.
And the length is greater than 72 because they're back-to-back duplexes? I'm guessing. But... And have you...
Yeah, yeah, probably 150-foot lot, 10 feet on the back. So, not more than 20 foot.
And so this new section of code, when the building gets over 72 feet in length, you're only allowed 48 feet, and then anything longer than that would require 15-foot setback. So those buildings wouldn't accommodate a 15-foot setback.
They do articulate. They weren't back to back. They were like offset.
Okay, so
5 feet, maybe 6 feet. I don't recall the exact dimension.
so it's possible that you might be close with this. Okay, that was my question. The only buildings I could think of that might have a problem with this, and you have to do. So thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please step forward. Alrighty, we will close the public hearing. What is the will of the body? Sure, Commissioner Krishnan.
Does staff have any text amendments that they would like to bring forward that we could include in amendments for the page that we were talking about?
The commission could approve it as written and recommend considering substituting the word unless for accept on line 25 and adding the word or on line 32. I just want to be able to consider them and consult with my colleagues.
Would you mind repeating that?
Oh, yeah. So, I think that Mr. Gardner's comments were really smart, and my gut says that adding the word unless on line 25 and the word or on 32 will be good changes. But if so, my recommendation is that the commission recommend approval to the assembly of this cleanup ordinance, and for the planning department to consider a substitution for language on line 25 and line 32, page 5. That was Mr. Gardner's comment about the word unless instead of accept, and the word or between Romanet 1 and 2 to increase understanding.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Commissioner Krishna, seconded by Commissioner Ron. Commissioner Krishna, would you like to state your motion?
Sure. I move in case 2025-0006 to recommend to the Anchorage Assembly approval of the proposed text amendments to AMC 2104 zoning districts and AMC 2106 dimensional standards, including the edits to recommend substituting unless on line 25 and adding the word or on line 32 of page 5.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
I intend to support this motion. I think we've worked through all of the substantive points and appreciate staff's work on this.
Commissioner Ron, or Gardner, Commissioner Gardner, would you like to speak to that?
Sure, thank you. I intend to support the motion as well. It seems like there is some cleanup that's needed to reflect the intent of the underlying AO. I was just going to comment with respect to the potential changes on lines 25 and 26 on page 5 of the packet. I think some language that might be worth considering is striking the additions on 25 and 26 and replacing it with unless the building elevation has, so that the whole thing would read under Romanet 1, the building elevation facing the side lot line is greater than 72 feet in length, unless the building elevation has no more than 48 feet in length without a recess, et cetera, et cetera. It may be worth just looking at that in context with fresh eyes, but I think that language might be more clear.
I second that.
That's good.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Ms. Eber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Strike?
Yes.
That motion passes. Now we are to the section of the agenda for commissioner comments. Any commissioners wishing to make any comments? Or have any questions? Seeing none?
I had a
Yep,
question
yep.
for Mr. Krishna. You said the first Friday's at MOA. Do you know like what time and where?
It's at the Anchorage Museum. I think it's just in the lobby as part of, or in the museum as part of First Friday. I understand the planning department will be having a booth where they talk about the downtown streets engineering study.
Commissioner George.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to say that I appreciate the hard work and sacrifice that every one of the commissioners here gives to the city of Anchorage. At least twice a month, but really, truly many hours more than that. I'm grateful for the sacrifice you make without compensation, so it's been hard.
And there'll be no meeting next Monday. A motion to adjourn. Anybody? Moved by Commissioner Krishna, seconded by Commissioner Winchester. Anyone opposed?